Figured it out.
Hello.
And now we
Hi, it's
lost
good to see
Ken.
you.
Oh no. Oh, there he's back.
He's there. He's
Oh,
there.
yeah,
He's there.
yeah.
Okay, let's kick this off. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I really appreciate it. And first and foremost, thank you, Josh, for doing this. Thank you for your being so generous with your time. For everybody listening to this later, welcome to another Toon Room podcast conversation. This week we have Josh Fisher, who is an award-winning producer who's worked with well, I was counting earlier and I wanted to say some of the bigger guys in the industry, but I think it's all of the big guys in the industry, not just some. And also created, developed a lot of shows. We'll be dropping some names and naming some things a little bit later. Vast experience working in big, is it fair to say, corporate environments? Uh,
Yeah, I feel like I've got a healthy mix of
yeah,
independent studios and big giant
as well
corporate
as independence.
things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's where I was kind of going with that, and then also smaller studios and independents and creators. And currently, Josh is helping people, sharing his expertise, helping people develop, putting things together, giving feedback on pitches, on creative materials, you name it, and figuring out also strategies, right, for different projects and IPs and so on. And I'll let you tell us a little bit more about that. So welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you again for being here. We had a little sort of prep talk before, and we keep these conversations pretty casual. And the main thing that I try to sort of promote, I suppose, with these chats and also with the community is that we're about the people. It's really everything is
Right.
about the people here, right? So it would be really cool to maybe start at the beginning and kind of talk a little bit about your background. I'm really interested because I think about this all the time from my own experience, and I think it's really inspiring as well for other people because not too many people, if any, in the industry have really set out to go, okay, that's exactly what I'm going to do in the animation industry, and they end up doing that. Everybody has a very interesting path into where they end up. So I was
Sure.
just wondering, when you were growing up, when you were, I don't know, a teenager, when you were figuring out what to do professionally or where to go to college, or was there an inkling that you're interested in working in animation in general,
Yeah.
or was it anything else?
Uh yeah, I mean, how far you want to go back? The first time I remember thinking there was something I wanted to do, I was listening to a Steve Martin cassette. And I was like, I
Okay.
could totally do this.
Right.
And I begged my mom to get me a banjo because I wanted to learn how to play banjo so I could be a
Yeah.
stand-up comic like Steve Martin.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, and then that didn't seem like a realistic thing. You know, I grew up
But
out.
did you learn to play the banjo though?
No, my
Is
parents were
there a
like, we're
silver
not getting you a
lining? No.
band. They're like,
Okay.
we're not getting you a
Okay.
banjo. We live in New Jersey. Um, so I grew up in New Jersey mostly, uh, pretty close to New York City, kind of in the shadow of New York City. I had no idea what I wanted to do. My parents worked at a carpet store and like installed carpet. I did one summer working for my dad's one of the carpet installers for my dad,
Mhm.
installing carpet. And at the end of that summer, I was like, I definitely need to go to college. Like this is not a job that I want to have to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Um, so I had no idea what I wanted to do when I first went to college. I went to a small school in New Hampshire for a year and a half. And I'd always been a soccer player, and
Yeah.
I wound up getting recruited to play on the soccer team. It was a small little
Oh,
Division 3
cool.
school. It's not like I played big, like Division 1 soccer or anything like that. But um, on the soccer team, I met a guy my freshman year who was a junior who had his own radio show on the college radio station. And I just thought that
Hmm.
was super cool. I was like, growing up outside of New York City, I was deep in early hip hop. Like uh
Right.
I was very, very into the early hip hop scene. I was like a break dancer for a while. Um, and so I started helping him out on his radio show. And then I auditioned and got my own radio show and literally brought like
Oh, cool.
cassettes with me from, like indie record shops in New York, and I would play things that you couldn't find in New Hampshire uh, on the radio. And then the station manager, anytime a hip hop uh, a rap song would come in, he'd be like this was a radio station that was like full indie, like the Pixies and the Cure and all those obscure
Right.
bands. And I didn't know any of that, and I didn't like any of that. I was like, I'm just gonna play rap and hip hop and dance music. And I remember NWA's album came out, and being in New Hampshire, no one had ever heard of them. And the station manager was like, no, it was Easy E's album. Station manager was like,
Ah, okay.
uh, yeah, give it to Josh. He plays that crap. And I just like looked at it and put the first track on, and all these F bombs started dropping. And suddenly the phone is ringing. The
Sure.
station manager's like, "You can't play this. We're gonna get fined on the radio." And I was like, "I don't know. You gave it to me." So in college, I decided like I'll be a radio major.
Yeah.
And then I did a semester abroad in the UK and changed my life. Like just being exposed to Europe, and like, at that point we had a Euro pass, and you had all of Europe. Like on the weekend, we'd go to Scotland or we'd go to Italy. I
Right.
went to Oktoberfest. Like I did all these incredible things that like as a kid from New Jersey, I never really thought about. And when I finished that semester, I felt like I couldn't stay in New Hampshire, that New Hampshire was like a tiny little small town. And so I
Hmm.
transferred to Emerson and auditioned for the radio station at Emerson. And at that point, Emerson had like the number one college radio station in the country. And
Mm.
I was like, they were like, I made it to like the last round, and I didn't get picked to get my own radio show. And I was like,
Uh-huh. Okay.
F that. And so I was pissed. I was again playing on a soccer team, and started hanging out with guys who were TV and film majors. And so I was like, well, I didn't get a radio show. I'll
Yeah.
look at TV. And so I
Right.
switched to a TV major and worked at a cable station as an internship, made a little documentary as like a senior practicum, and realized like I just kind of wanted to be a storyteller. And even though I graduated Emerson with a degree in TV and a minor in advertising, I didn't really know what it meant to like be a storyteller. I applied for, got a job at Disney World in Florida. So I graduated
Hmm.
college and moved to Florida to work at Disney World. I was a Splash Mountain cowboy, and tried to get into the production entity
Yeah, yeah.
At
That was
Disney.
your clever in to show business, right? Like,
I didn't know, like, I needed a job, like, to eat food
yeah.
and stuff, and so I wound up getting into the production on the Disney clubs, which are the International Mickey Mouse Club TV show. So all the
Yes.
International Mickey Mouse Club shows come to Disney World. They have basically 2 or 3 weeks to shoot all their in-park set pieces,
Hmm.
and then they go back to wherever their home country is. So I worked with Chile, I worked with France, I worked with Germany, I worked with a couple of other ones, and it was basically like for 6 weeks, you're like the liaison, like production
Yeah.
coordinator, um,
But
and
that's great, great, great training in terms of talking to people from different cultures, different ways of kind of functioning and
yeah,
working, I guess. Yeah.
it was interesting. It was, it was like, oh, the team from Chile wants to come and do a shoot on Thunder Mountain Railroad, And
Hmm.
so you call up and you're like, hey, we're going to be there at 3 o'clock. I need you to, close the ride for 15 minutes. We'll do our thing. And you just like, it was coordination, working with a team. Got to see
Yeah.
how it all went down. It was great. And then that that job ended and I got sent back to the theme park. And then I was like, I got to get out of Florida. So I quit and I moved back home with my parents for like a month while I looked for a apartment and a job in New York. And then I found a place in Hell's Kitchen and moved to New York City and like started doing freelance TV. I worked on a talk show. I worked on a whole bunch of commercials and promos for Nickelodeon. I worked on a bunch of awful independent films. I worked on
S-
some stuff for ESPN. It was just like I was like a
Yeah.
freelance PA and a production coordinator, production manager,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
ultimately got a job on a TV show called Extra, which in the States is
Yeah.
like it's a news magazine show, celebrity gossip
Okay.
and press
Yeah.
junkets and stuff like that. And I hated it. It was terrible. It was like, I really wanted to be creative, and this was like the opposite of creative. This was just the
Right.
tail end. It wasn't my thing, but it was a job,
But this was like
and
like a tabloids kind of thing.
totally like tablet. Yeah, in fact, one day there was a story, there was a rumor, somebody got a thing that Princess Diana was going to be staying at this hotel in New York, and we didn't have a camera crew, and so they were like, Josh, grab a camera and go to this hotel. Just wait outside and see if you can get some footage of Princess Diana.
Oh.
And I was like, okay. And so I literally grabbed a camera and stood out there with like 30 or 40 other dudes with cameras and waited around. And it was like, this is before cell phones, right? I've been at it for a
Yeah.
while. So I didn't have
Hmm.
a cell phone. I had a pager. And I realized like it was like 5:30 at night, and then it was like 6 o'clock, and it's winter, it's cold in New York. Then it was like 7, then it was like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I realized like no one is gonna call me
How
and tell me
long?
to
Yeah.
go home. Like
Yeah.
how long do I do this for? So finally at like 8:30, I was like, I'm just gonna go home. And yeah, so never saw Princess Diana, went home. Robin Williams did come out though, so that was cool. I got like footage of Robin
Oh, that's
Williams.
cool.
And he could not have been a nicer person. Um,
Yeah.
and I was working at Extra, and after a couple of years in New York, a good friend of mine from college got into AFI, which is a graduate level film program here in Los
Hmm.
Angeles.
That's
And
American Film Institute, correct?
yep, yes.
Okay, for people
Uh,
maybe not familiar with what AFI is. Okay.
yes, the American Film is so one of my best friends from college got in there, and my college roommate, who was still living in Boston, uh, he was working at a camera store. And so he he called one day and said, "Hey, John has just moved to Los Angeles. I really hate my job. I'm thinking of going to LA to check it out just to see what it's like." And I said, "Come get me." And that was it. Like just no real thought, no real plan, but knew I didn't want to work at Extra forever. And so he came and picked me up, and we left half my apartment on the side of 52nd Street, and I drove out to LA with my friend, and we started to figure it out. And so I settled in North Hollywood, and again, like needed a job. I wound up through a guy who I knew from a freelance job I had done in New York. He would hire me as a PA or production coordinator on different things. I wound up getting a
Hmm.
job on a live action thing at Nickelodeon for a hot minute called Bing, the Sound of Something New. We did 13 episodes. Then we did three best ofs, which weren't really the best of. And then that show got canceled. I started doing more freelance stuff. Um, I worked on a bunch of pilots that didn't go anywhere. I worked on commercials, promos, like just anything. And then I wound up getting a job as a production coordinator on the pilot of Mr. Show, which was an early days HBO thing that kind of became cult popular. Um,
Oh, okay.
but I was the production coordinator, and I kept getting jobs as production coordinator. So like I knew about budgets and schedules, but I really wanted to
Yeah.
be on the creative side.
Right. So
And
this is, yeah, I wanted to jump in and go like, you mentioned the word storyteller early on, and now it's been a while, right?
yeah,
It's been a while. So
and I think I wrote a spec Simpsons episode, and I wrote a spec like Friends, and I was doing stuff on
yeah.
the creative side, but uh the jobs that I could get were either PA or production coordinator.
Mhm.
It's some production manager stuff, and but it would like that's the opposite end. So I could like see the creative happening. I just
Yeah.
wasn't near it.
Yeah. You
And
aren't hands-on yet.
so I uh I wound up leaving that job because I uh, in the offices above our offices, a sitcom was moving in. And so I literally went upstairs with my resume and was like, I would like a job on your writing team. And they were like, no. But you like they needed a script PA. So I was like, oh, it has the word script in it. I'll go with that. So I became script PA on a sitcom. That was terrible. Script PAs
Yeah.
at that moment on that specific job, like it was just you basically get the people who are doing the creative work, you get them coffee and food. Um,
Yes,
and
I've heard stories from other friends in LA who have done this exact job in very
yeah,
similar circumstances. So yeah,
and it was, I always say it was a terrible job, but I made really good
it's a formative period.
friends there. It is, it is character building for sure. Like
Yeah.
I kind of hated it. The show was terrible. A lot of people on it were pretty mean. Um, but it led to something else. So I'm thankful for that experience. And, I did get
Hmm.
a little bit of insight into what it's like to be in that big machine. Then a friend of a friend of mine knew Hallie Stanford, and Hallie had just been promoted to something and was looking for an assistant. And someone helped me, someone connected us, and I sat down and had coffee with Hallie, and she was like, "We're like the same person. I'm going to recommend you to a friend of mine who needs a job at this animation studio, or who needs an assistant at this
The person,
animation
yeah,
studio."
yeah.
And so she recommended me the studio called Hyperion. And because I had been a production coordinator, I knew enough about budgets and schedules to be dangerous. And I
Yeah.
definitely exaggerated how much I really knew about budgets and schedules. And I became the assistant to the head of production at an animation company called Hyperion. And
There you go. Yeah.
there's a guy named Kurt Albrecht, and he was a really nice guy, and we're still friends. And uh, in about 3 weeks into that job, the woman who was the head of development, she asked me to read something and give her thoughts. It was a small studio, right? Where there's like maybe 50
Yeah.
people. Um, she asked me to give her feedback on the script, and I did. And she was like, "You're super funny. You should come work for me." And so she went into Kurt's office and was like, "I'm taking your assistant. You have to find a new one." And he was like, "What?" And she's like, "Sorry, this is happening." And so I became the
Oh,
assistant to the
that's
head of
nice.
development. And
Yeah.
for me, I always say, like, that's where I found the clothes that fit me. You know, working for
Hmm.
Corey and like development was the thing. It made sense in my head. We had some
Right.
successful stuff. I got to pitch ideas for stories on Life with Louie. Um, and I really learned like how development works and how to develop a show. And then after like probably a year and a half there, the company went through some difficult times. A lot of the assistants got let go. I was one of
Yeah.
them. But I got picked up by a guy named Dan DiDio, and I became the development manager, I think, development manager, development coordinator for a company called Mainframe. It's like the first iteration of Mainframe back in the reboot days. And then I got to work on Beast Wars and Beast Machines. I worked on a show called War
Hmm.
Planets. I developed a thing called Scary Godmother. And Dan had been in development for a while. He'd been a network executive. Um, I learned a ton from him. And we worked on just building shows from the ground up. And he was a great mentor, a great boss, like became a good friend. and we got the rights to a series. I got to be a little part of the development of, at that point, Angela Anaconda, and met a lot of Canadians. Even though I was in LA, met, you know, a bunch of
Yeah.
Canadian studios, Canadian partners, and saw how like the world put shows together, not just how shows get put together in the US.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we got the rights to a series, to a project called Weirdos, which was, you know, Big Daddy Roth and Rat Fink in the 70s was this model line, and Weirdos was like a competitive model line to them. So it was like sort of a known IP, but not a really big known IP, but it was fun. And we developed it as a squash and stretch, the first ever squash and stretch CG animated series. And
Mm.
we pitched it to what was then Fox Family Channel. The exec was Nancy Redford, and she was awesome. And we got the show greenlit, and Nancy was moving over to the primetime team from the kids team. And she had coffee with me, and she was like, "Hey, I think you're really good at this, and like you've been a great creative partner on Weirdos. I'd like to recommend you to replace me on the kids
Mm.
team at Fox." And so I became a network executive. And that was like the first
Wow.
big boy grown up job that I got.
Yeah.
Um, and it was, you know, Fox Family Channel at that moment hadn't even launched yet. And so we had a big conference room with a slate of like Tuesday at 8 o'clock was going to be Angela Anaconda. Tuesday at 8:30 was just a blank space. And the mission was like, we got to fill in all these spaces. We got
Fill it.
to
Yeah.
find shows, green light shows. And that was, first of all,
This
like
is happening. This is happening when, just for a little bit of context.
that was probably 1998,
Okay.
right around there. And you know, it was like really inspiring, empowering job. You know, we were so busy with so many things and a small team that it was like
Hmm.
my boss, who was Joel Andrick, who's a great, great guy, literally was like, just do your job and let me know where you're running into problems. And
Yeah.
uh, you know, so
That's
I
great.
learned a lot
Yeah.
about being a young network executive. I learned, took some bumps where I learned what was
Of course.
appropriate, and like what was okay to do, where to sort of use your leverage, and where maybe you just let it go sometimes.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it was a great training ground. Joel was a great boss. I learned a lot. I worked on some incredible properties. Probably the biggest one was Totally Spies. So I got to
Yeah.
develop Totally Spies from the ground up. In fact, it was called The
Oh
Spy
wow.
Girls.
Cool.
It's called The Spy Girls when they pitched it to me, and I was like, that's a terrible title. You should change it to something like, I don't know, Totally Spies. And they were like, that's a great idea. And so uh
Nice.
worked on the, you know, was the executive in charge of production of the first 100 episodes of that. I worked on S Club 7, which was a huge international live action music show from Simon Fuller. And then they sold to Disney. So after a couple of years, I think I was
Yeah.
there like almost 3.5, 4 years. They sold to Disney, and basically our team was redundant to the Disney team. And
Hmm.
I wound up getting a job as the head of development at what was then called Mike Young Productions, which then became Moonscoop and then became Splash. And at Mike Young, you know, it was different. It was like an independent studio. And so Mike did a lot of international co-productions. We did like a uh,
Yeah.
French, UK, Ireland co-production on a show called Pet Alien. Um, I got to work on Clifford the Big Red Dog and Puppy Days a little bit.
Yeah.
I did it, you know, Jakers was there. Um, I developed a show called I Got a Rocket, which got nominated for an Emmy, and we won an Emmy for that. I developed a show called Growing Up Creepy, which was on what was then Discovery Kids for a while. We did a show called Todd World, which was also nominated for an Emmy. And so
This is all
I
with
think
Splash.
That was Mike Young Productions and then Moonscoop. They later became Splash. I
Yeah.
left before they changed the name to
Okay.
Splash.
Right.
So
Because
you know, like
yeah. Okay. I'm familiar with Splash. I think I've met Pete on a few
yeah, yeah,
occasions.
yeah, Pete Young.
But
So
yeah.
you know, it was a pretty prolific time. I felt like what was neat about Mike Young Productions was it was not a corporate structure. It was like
Yeah.
by any means necessary. So I I wrote
More
the
of a startup
Bible.
mentality in a sense, right?
Yeah, startup, sort of like bootstrapped. You know, there
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of times where I was doing more than just the development work. Like I was story editing, doing polishes on pilot scripts, writing Bibles, uh, you know, writing lyrics for songs. It was just a little bit of whatever
Yeah.
needed getting done, you know, we did. And so I got to really be in the thick of the creative on it for
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I wanted to say. Isn't that like the creatively, it's like the most satisfying place you can be, right? Because you get to play with all the aspects of it.
Yeah, I think
Um,
creatively there was a lot of things that were really rewarding, and I'm super proud of some of the things that I did. Structurally, I would say there were some challenges
oh,
there, but you know,
yeah, insane.
every
Yeah,
job has
yeah,
its challenges. Um,
yeah.
so I then this is where I took a little bit of a zig in that you remember Neopets? So Neopets was like a huge digital online game for well, it was a virtual world,
Hmm.
and I had always
Right.
been kind of curious
Oh,
up about it. They
yeah,
got
yeah, yeah.
acquired by Nickelodeon for like 40 or 80 million dollars, I forget. Um, in the early 2000s. So I got married and my wife and I bought a house in the valley and moving in the same week that we moved into our house, right across the street was a guy who was the former head programmer for Neopets. And he and I just became friends and uh, I told him I had a silly idea for an online game and he looked at it and thought it was super cool. And so we decided he's like, if you can do the creative part, I can do all the programming and we'll just put it together ourselves. So in
Mm.
2005, with my friend Barry, I launched an online game world called Urbaniacs, which was like a little side hustle, kind of a nights and weekends thing that we were
Yeah.
doing. And it sort of took off a little bit, you know, and then we got featured on the front page of the LA Times business section about like this little innovative company that was you know doing interesting things in the online games and virtual world space and it shined like a really bright spotlight on me as somebody who was doing creative things
Yeah.
in the digital space. And I was still the head of development at Mike Young Productions, you know, doing this on the nights and weekends. And from that, we you know we got some VC offers for that, and it wasn't like the right. None of them were the right opportunity. But these two
Hmm.
guys from a company called Brandissimo, which was a brand new startup company, it was like a two-person company. Uh, they called and they're like, "You have to come work for us." And I was like, "Well, who are you and what do you do?"
And
And
why?
I sat down and met with them, and you know, their pitch was they were both like SVPs from Disney. David Snyder was the head of Disney TV International, and had just moved back to the States. And the other guy was Bill Gross, who was a big time William Morris agent who represented Jumbo Pictures and had worked at Disney. Um, and they were starting this new company and they were like, we're going to be online and linear and digital and mobile and we're going to be everywhere kids are. And you're just doing it. Like you're literally doing all the things that we say we're going to do. And so you know, it was like a big leap of faith. I took a flyer on it and I agreed to work with them, and the deal was they would sort of support Urbaniacs, and I would run creative for the company, and we would, you know, build out properties for kids no matter where
Yeah.
they play. And I loved that promise, and so after a year, the promise was that I would become a partner at the company after a year if it worked out. And about,
Yeah.
I want to say 3 or 4 months into the job, we got a call by the National Football League. The NFL is American
Hmm.
football. It's the biggest sports brand in the US by like a huge factor. They generate more revenue and do more business than the NBA, professional basketball, and hockey combined. Like it's just
Right. Yeah.
it's huge business. And they wanted us to do an animated DVD for them, and we said, yeah, sure, we can do an animated DVD, but in 6 months, nobody is going to care. If you really want to engage with kids, if you want, they really wanted to grow their youth business. And we said, if you want to talk
Hmm.
to kids and grow that business, you got to go where kids play. And at that point, Club Penguin was like the biggest thing that anybody was doing in the kids space. Everybody's talking about Club Penguin. So we pitched a virtual world to the NFL. And long story short, we walked away with a $2 million a year business. And so I ran creative for the NFL's kids initiative and kids strategy for like 8 years. We built
Wow.
3 different iterations of the virtual world. We grew their kids business from about 80,000 kids a month to 2 million
Hmm.
kids a day, uh, in like in a very short period of time. And so
Impressive. Yeah.
we made 175 games for the NFL. We did 3 different iterations of the virtual world. There was an animated series based on the characters we created in the virtual world that was produced, aired on Nicktoons. It was like a big thing. I got to go to a couple Super Bowls. That was fun. Um, and then the idea of doing like an eighth season of the NFL's kids strategy was not super exciting to me personally.
Right.
And at the same time, I was being recruited by a headhunter to join Spin Master, and that did seem exciting. And so I left Brandissimo and the NFL, and I became the head of development at Spin Master. Um, and
Yeah.
that was a great job. Um, I it was a super prolific time. We in the 4.5 years that I was at Spin Master, we developed and sold 6 shows, and one of those shows was Paw Patrol.
Right.
And so, and I got to really work hand in hand with the toy designers and learn how to make a CP friendly show the right way with super talented people. Also, while I was there, I started a digital initiative and we launched a YouTube content incubator.
Hmm.
We produced 100 shorts in a year.
Yeah. So I
Um,
wanted to ask you about Spindo because I hadn't heard of it, but I was researching it a little bit earlier, and it
yeah,
was like it's really interesting project. And I wanted also to mention that really ahead of its time, because you know what I mean.
yes, I do. I mean, like there's a couple people who work there, a couple people whose shorts we did. In fact, my next call is with Matt Fernandez, who we greenlit one of his shorts on Spindo TV. Um,
Mm,
and it's still one of my favorites. It was called the Commandos. Look it up.
yeah.
It's hilarious.
Okay. I'll check it out. Yeah.
It's like the Expendables, but in an all candy world. Um, and it's sweet versus sour. I love that property. It was like so funny. We made it with like 2 nickels. Matt and his company did a great job. I think Industrial Brothers at that point was like 5 people, and
Yeah.
now they're a giant and they're doing amazing things. So
Yeah.
yeah, Spindo TV was great. Like it was born out of the head of the company, Renan Harari. Uh, like he didn't like to read scripts. He just wanted to see stuff. And he was like, "How can we
Right.
just see more development? Like how more?" And I was like,
Just
"Let's
make
make
it.
shorts. Let's just,
Yeah.
you know." And at that point, it was like Moonbug before Moonbug. Um,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I put a proposal together, and they were on board. And what's crazy is we did 100 shorts in a year, and one of those
Mhm.
shorts, YouTube contacted us and said, "We love this. We want to do a pilot, like a full 11-minute pilot." And they sent us a contract to do
Yeah.
a pilot. And then we also had early days Netflix came to us and they were really interested in commandos. And at that point, my boss left and went over to Nickelodeon, and the new head of the entertainment team just didn't feel like there was value in Spindo TV. She felt like it was
Yeah.
not where the company was going. At that point, there was changes around, and they wanted me to shut down Spindo TV. And I just felt like the business model was, let's do shorts that resonate with an audience and use that audience
Yeah.
data to go to the networks to sell shows.
Test it.
And we
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we did it, and we were doing it. Like, we had an offer from YouTube, we had Netflix interested, and I really I was bummed out to have to shut it down. And at the same time, Ace Fipke, who was the head of who had just gotten his company Nerdcore had just gotten acquired. Uh, he and Ken Fair just got acquired by at that
Hmm.
time it's called DHX, now Wildbrain. And
Yeah.
they called and they were like, "Hey, we're looking for a creative lead in LA." And I was like, "I'm in." So I left Spin Master. I didn't. I abandoned my role of shutting down Spindo and went over to Wildbrain DHX and got to work on some really cool properties there. I developed and sold Mega Man to Cartoon Network. Got to work on Strawberry Shortcake, got to work on Peanuts, got
Yeah.
to work on a bunch of different projects there. One project created by Keith Chapman, who had also created been creator of Paw Patrol. We pitched it to Netflix at MIPCOM, and they didn't buy the show. But after MIPCOM, I got a call from the executive that we pitched to, and she was like, "Come have coffee over at Netflix." And long story short,
Mm.
I became a Netflix executive. And so I had an extraordinary experience at Netflix, learned an incredible amount, super proud of the projects that I got to work on. I was there for a couple of years, and then there were some cuts and I was on the wrong side of the cut and
Yeah.
left Netflix. And so that's, like 20 something years of working on big IP, little IP, developing things from scratch, selling TV shows around the world, working on
Yeah.
co-productions. And
Yeah. And
just to be honest, I was a little like corporate burnt out.
yes. Yeah.
Netflix was an extraordinary job, but like kind of undoable. I think I oversaw about 27 projects, 14 of which were in production. And so just overseeing,
Yeah.
scripts, premises, outlines, storyboards,
Yes.
animatics, rough cuts, like on 14 shows, it's
Yeah.
it was crazy. Um
Yeah. Just
so
the sheer
I
volume of it. Yeah.
yeah,
And it,
so
yeah.
I didn't want another job, and I kind of just decided to do the job that I've done for everybody else, but for myself for no money. And I started developing my own project and started consulting for people and taking what I learned at Spin and Wild Brain and Mike Young and Fox and Netflix and everywhere and just applying that. And I was very fortunate that people called and wanted to work with me. And I also put a little slate together
Yeah.
of 6 projects. Some were original, some were book based, and I went to Kid Screen with my own little slate of, the I Josh Around slate, and
Yeah.
I sold all 6 of them to 6 different partners, and suddenly you're an
Oh,
independent
nice.
producer. And then I
Yeah.
learned a lot about business and legal affairs. Um, when you're an individual and not a big corporation. And
Yeah.
from there, I, started developing things, and then like COVID happened, the world shut down, all that. But I continued to consult and continued to work with different partners. I've worked. I feel very honored that people called to work with me on things, and people were open to develop stuff, uh,
Yeah.
and about 2 years ago. I started doing some consulting for this great studio in Australia called Pixel Zoo, who had only been a service studio for years and years. and my good friend Sadaf introduced me to them, and she's like, they need somebody like you. They want to develop original IP. And she's like, this studio is my secret weapon. So I helped them, I did a little bit of consulting and I helped them get a project. We went after a book property from Coolaby and we developed it and we went to Kid Screen together. Um, and we got multiple offers to partner up and we signed a deal to make it a Spanish-Australian co-production. And we're like deep in it and it looks like, knock on wood, we've got enough
Yeah.
interest on the show around the world to put it into production, hopefully this year. Um,
Oh, awesome. Good luck. Great.
and then based on that, uh, I now run development for Pixel Zoo, and it's been a great partnership.
Collaboration. Yeah.
And so I really do like them. I still have a few things that I am attached to that are outside of my relationship with them, but they're my primary focus. I have an overall deal with them. First look on anything new that I take on. We are doing service work for a couple of different toy companies. We have two feature
Hmm.
films that we've brought in based on graphic novels that we're developing. We have
Oh,
a
cool.
we're co-developing a project with BBC. We're co-developing a project with the ABC in Australia on another project. We've got an investor on one of our films, and we're talking to the world about different projects and different opportunities, and it's been great. I think the big thing that I've learned is every show, every idea, every project has its own trajectory and own path,
Yeah.
and we're not just looking at the US, we're not just looking at Australia, we're really looking at the world as, where are good partners and where are good opportunities. And I'm super, super proud. So that's it. And I live in LA. I've got
Awesome.
two kids, two dogs, and one wife.
Yeah, I think one is all you need.
Yeah.
On the dogs and on the kids, I'm not so sure, but the wife, I think that's good
Yeah.
numbers there.
So
Uh,
that is a long-ish version of my
no,
backstory.
that's fascinating. Thank you so much for that. That's really, really, really cool. What maybe I would, since we're here, what I would like to ask you is from like a personal perspective. Oh, first of all, I wanted to remark that all of this it happened because you didn't get a job on the radio at Emerson. So you need to go back and
Yeah.
thank those people for not giving you that gig.
By the way,
Um,
there's a long laundry list of jobs I didn't get. So,
of
you know,
course. Yeah,
but they're
yeah.
all,
Of
you know,
course.
they're learning experiences and I think you failure is a great teacher and a great motivator, you know? I get asked a
For sure.
lot.
Yeah.
I get asked a lot what's the secret ingredient to success on Paw Patrol? And
Mm,
the answer I always give is the team built a show that was targeting younger boys in an action adventure space, but it turns out that girls also like puppies, you know?
yeah.
Um, like putting together, like it was timing and luck and an incredible amount of
Of
talented
course.
people
Yeah.
working really, really hard uh, to make something that they could be proud of, and that timing and the support that we got from all the parties was the reason why Paw Patrol was successful. And it's a super cute show that was kind of innovative at the time,
Yeah.
But aside from that, I learned a lot more from the shows that we didn't sell or the shows that only got one season or, the partnerships that fell
Hmm.
apart. Like those, those teach you a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Of course. Failure is a good teacher. I agree 100%. Speaking of shows and speaking of creative, is there anything, maybe it's I don't know, it's a personal affinity, maybe it's a bit of a guilty pleasure, I don't know, maybe it's you as a father, but is there, in terms of, it could be anything, it could be stories, it could be style, any types of shows or any type of content or film or movies or whatever it is that you would like to see more of being made, or you would like to make more of, whether it's again certain type of storytelling or a genre, or maybe a certain style, or like whatever it is that
Yes,
make it
yes to
more or
all
less
of it. Like
specific.
it Yes to all of it. Like it's all happening right now, you know? I mean, look, YouTube is delivering on everybody's passion project, you know? Um, I
Right.
think I think that in the kids space, in the animation space, um, the shows that are heavily noted and tried to and look, I have been a network executive a couple of times and loved my time there and got
Yeah.
opportunities to work with really talented creators and also, have strong friendships with my colleagues. Um, but I think that shows that are overly developed and noted and heavily focus tested and uh, you know, have so many hands on them that they lose the vision. I think that those
Yeah.
shows will continue to struggle to survive more than the shows that are, uh, that have a vision, that have a creator, that uh, you know, follow somebody's passion. And I think
Yeah.
right now the audience wants stuff that is made for them, and that's why people are looking at YouTube uh, more for content than at any other moment in time, you know?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
but I also, like, I believe in the system, and I believe in, Disney and Netflix and all the other partners out there. I believe that they can launch humongous franchises, like, they have these engines to support good content, um,
Hmm.
and so
Yeah.
I'm rooting for everyone's success. I believe success is contagious for every, you know, one of the things that makes Bluey amazing is, Joe Brum's vision for what that show is supposed to be. And
Yeah.
and I think for whatever the next Bluey is, uh, people will then want shows like that, and people will want to, follow that success. And so I'm rooting for anyone's success.
Right. You might have just answered it, but you know how oftentimes songwriters then they listen to a song and go, "Man, I wish I wrote that." Is there a project that you think of that way that is that, man, I wish that was one of mine.
Uh, is there one that I wish that I had worked on? I mean, uh, I'll take SpongeBob. Like that would have been a nice one
Yeah.
to have created. Like it's done all right for itself. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah.
I don't necessarily think that way. Like I'm
Okay, fair enough.
I think sometimes that there are ideas that come out that you're like, "Oh my god, that's such a good idea." Uh, a
Mhm.
friend of mine who has a show that has just been greenlit, but it's not announced yet, and it's a mashup of 2 things that when he told me about it, I was like, "That's such a good idea."
Yeah.
Um, and,
Yeah,
I wouldn't say I'm jealous. I appreciate that he, like, put those 2 things together in his head
yeah.
and somebody saw, other people saw the genius of it and it's getting made. Like,
Oh, that's great.
that
Yeah.
yeah, that there's, I I think we work in a community full of so many talented, crazy, offbeat
Mhm.
creatives that, it's just fun to collaborate with people, and it's fun to watch other people shine, and, I
Yeah,
am cautiously optimistic for the projects that I'm involved with, that they will find an audience and find a home, but, um, yeah, I'm not built that
yeah.
way of like, "Oh, I wish that was mine," you know? I
Right.
think the mission for me is to work with people I like on projects we can be proud of, you know?
Yes. Yes, totally. Fair enough. Um, cool. Awesome. Is there, we talked a little bit about the value of failure, and you were just mentioning how cool the community of people in the animation industry is in general, and specifically the creatives. Um, how much do you think, because I have this, like, you were mentioning all your bosses and all the different people who gave you a chance or saw something in you, and hey, come over here and let's do cool things together. You should be working here, you should be doing this. And then you said on a few occasions, oh, that person was such a great boss, that person was such a great boss, and I learned so much. So this speaks to me to the value of kindness in the industry and in the business, and whatever it is, whether it's being a good boss, and that entails so many different facets and dimensions, obviously, but that is one of it, and a pretty important one, I think. So, and in how you deal with creatives, how you deal with your partners, maybe people you work with, and so on. So, if you could, how do you feel about that? I'm curious because you've worked again at different levels, big corporate environments, which not
Mhm.
always maybe lends itself to that sort of
Yeah.
attitudes, let's say. You get kind of ground up in the machine, and then
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, like, I learned I learned a lot, uh, I think I've been fortunate to work with some really talented people who were excellent leaders. Not everyone was,
yeah.
and I think you learn equally from the good and the bad. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and I think early early on, I I had way more ego and ego and confidence, and I think the older you get,
Hmm.
the less
Yeah.
ego and the less confidence and uh, the more what is the right word? The more perspective and the more awareness. And
Yeah.
like I remember I got in trouble once when I was at Fox Family Channel early days because like one of the
Hmm.
producers, like we had asked for a note and the producer like just flat out ignored it. And they were a more senior person than I was. I sent some note like, I don't know why you're
Yeah.
not taking the notes. Like, you know, do whatever the note I sent was like
Like, do I have to
me
pull rank on you?
trying to be like I'm pulling my Netflix or not my Netflix, my network executive card of
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm the boss of the show. Get in line.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he went right to my boss, and then like the next day I got called in and Joel was like, dude, he's like, uh, come on. He said, if you run into problems like this, he's like, call me. Don't let this happen again. He couldn't have been nicer about it, but like
Yeah.
I just realized, oh, you know, basically don't be an asshole, right? And
Yeah.
it was it was like one of those moments where, you know, don't write an email in the heat of the moment when you're mad, and
Hmm.
just like sit down,
I
take a
learned
beat, and
that
you're
lesson
like,
the hard way as well.
how fucking important is this note on this one show in this one scene? Like, it's not, right? And I probably should have just
Hmm.
called the guy and been like, "Hey, can we talk about it?" And it's funny because that one
Yeah.
moment 25 years ago has stuck with me often, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it was just the way, like I was wrong, right? And I've hung on to that. But then I like having an opportunity to work with such good people who were great leaders, right? And I think uh great leaders give you the room to do your job well. Like
Hmm.
one of the things I really appreciated about Spin Master was my boss said to me, she's like, you're here because you're really good at your job. I need you to just do your job and let me know if you have any problems. And she became like this shield that protected me and the team that I worked with uh, from like the corporate
Yeah.
structure of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the reasons why we had such success was uh, she empowered others to do their job well, and uh, I tried to honor that, and I tried to sort of take that and incorporate it into my own uh, leadership. And whenever I'm working with teams, like let people do the jobs they're good at. One of the philosophies at Netflix that I subscribe to is A people hire other A people, and B people hire
Hmm.
C people. You know,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
so uh, so like I've learned a lot along the way, and I think one of the cool things about what we get to do is it is very collaborative, you know,
Team
and
sports. Yeah.
yeah, it's a team sport, and I think part of it is having been on a lot of teams as a kid and in college. Uh, Working together for a common goal is a scenario that I feel very comfortable in.
Yeah. Has the soccer kind of mentality or practice kicked in ever in this sense?
All the time is like,
Yeah.
like I was never an amazing soccer player. Um, I I was all effort, you know? I
Hmm.
felt like I was not the most talented, so I was gonna try harder than everybody, or at least try to try harder. And from that, I found where I fit in on the team. I was never the best player. I was never a prolific goal scorer, but I was really good at giving an assist. You know, and
Hmm.
so a lot of like I would make the play that led to the goal uh,
Yeah.
more than the goal itself, and I kind of feel like I do that in the TV in the
Right.
kids space as well. Is
Hmm.
like I like putting things together. It's one of the reasons why I love development is like I like putting things together and going out and sharing them with the world, and I'm okay for someone else to be the hero.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. That's great. I think that's a wonderful analogy. One last thing.
Yeah,
So this community is called the Toon Room, and this is a question I ask everybody. If you were asked to pin a note to the door of the Toon Room for new people coming in, and also using it as a metaphor to the industry
sure.
for better or worse as it is, what would that note say?
I'll share what I've been sharing with everyone for about a year now, which is, you know, we work in a competitive industry that is run by giant corporations, but our job is to make creative stuff, and
Mhm.
we are currently, I won't say we're shifting, things have shifted, and it's changing and it's evolving, and I think the audience is consuming more content than ever before, but they're consuming it across broadcast and cable and SVOD and public broadcaster and YouTube and
Mhm.
Instagram and TikTok and like anywhere and everywhere. And so my message to everyone, which is what I am trying to do in my own life, is as far as content creation goes, be everywhere and do everything.
Okay.
You know, I'm I'm
Yeah.
working on I'm working on developing micro content, digital shorts,
Yeah.
11-minute, half hour, and feature film,
Yeah.
right? And they are for anywhere and everywhere that people consume content. And I think and I'm also doing books. Uh, so it's like
Uh-huh.
anywhere your audience is, feel, figure out a way to talk to them.
Yeah.
I think companies
Yeah.
like Clanosaurs are doing really interesting things.
Mhm.
Obviously the big networks are all trying to figure out how to compete. Uh, YouTube is cannibalizing all the big, the audience. And so
Yeah.
I think YouTube has to be a part of a bigger strategy. But just, figure it out, be everywhere, do everything.
Yeah. In that, just to clarify, that's great. And by the way, this answer, it always becomes the title of the episode, just so you know.
Sure.
Um, But just to clarify what you're saying, YouTube, in terms of, do you mean that YouTube is not enough of a single strategy? Oh, we're just going to do this for YouTube and stay on YouTube only. Is that what you're saying with that? It's not enough anymore, or that YouTube should be part of whatever bigger strategy you have? You should include it as kind of a mandatory thing as well.
It depends on what your goals are, you know?
Right.
Like
Okay.
YouTube can be an extraordinary platform to build and engage an audience, you know? And if that's your
Mhm.
goal, that can be a great place. If you know, if you want to build a franchise, I think YouTube has to be a meaningful part of a bigger strategy. You know, it
Yeah.
just it depends on what you want to do. I think I love to be entrepreneurial. I love to think about what's next and what's missing, and
Hmm.
uh, you know, the audience will tell you what they want. Like as much as we all would be great to be like, yeah, I want to sell a show to Nickelodeon. You know,
Yeah.
the big audience isn't showing up on Nickelodeon in the way that they used to. So if you want to be relevant to kids, you got to figure out how to talk to them where they are.
Right.
And so you know, I think what's great about YouTube is you can start a conversation with people
Hmm.
without very many obstacles, right? Like you got to figure out how to make stuff, but when you make it,
Yeah.
there's no obstacle to putting it up on YouTube. There is an art and a strategy and a lot of thinking that goes into how to make it find a bigger, wider audience. But if you just want to put something up, yeah, you can put it up right now. Same with
Yeah.
TikTok, same with Instagram, same with a lot of other platforms. And you know, I think it is interesting times in that the obstacles to getting your content in front of people have never been more ways to do it.
Sure. Yeah.
So make stuff, make cool shit and put it up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, maybe that becomes the title of the episode. Make
No,
cool shit and put it up. Listen, Josh, thank you
uh,
so very much for your time, and for the chat. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for, talking about your journey, and the whole story is really, really cool,
cool.
and fascinating. And I really appreciate your generosity. Ed, Marcelo, Kirk, thank you so much for being here. Do you have anything to add or questions to ask?
Josh, I guess I'll see you at Kids Screen.
Yeah.
I'll be a lizard. I'll be a lounge lizard.
All right. Awesome. I look forward to catching up, Ed. It's good to see
Yeah.
you.
And I've known Josh like 15 years, and I didn't know like his whole backstory. So it's great to hear a lot of that. I'm from New York. I didn't realize he
Oh,
was from New Jersey. I didn't remember.
oh,
Yeah.
there you go. Well, I'm happy to be
Ed
of
is a
service.
super talented artist, by the way. If anybody needs a designer, Ed
We
can do
Oh,
work
anything.
together. Yes, Ed is amazing. Yeah, agreed.
Alex and I worked together
Uh,
on
I
the Talking Tom.
I concur.
Sweet. Awesome. Well,
I
thanks a ton
concur
for
for
having me.
sure.
Appreciate it. I'm easy to
Um,
find if anybody has any questions. Kirk can tell you. Uh,
Yeah.
I'll answer all my emails.
all right.
Yeah.
Thanks
Amazing. Yeah.
everybody for showing up, and thank you, Josh, again for this.
Right
And
on.
have a lovely weekend, gents.
Same. Take care.
Great
Bye.
insight.
Ciao.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you.